I want to tell you about a patient named Arnold, 74 years old, retired engineer, still sharp, still active. He drove himself to his appointments. He mowed his own lawn. Every Sunday morning, he and his wife walked the same 2-mile loop around their neighborhood, the same loop they'd been walking together for 30 years. Arnold had been seeing the same family doctor for over a decade, and at every single appointment, his doctor told him the same thing. "Arnold, your blood pressure looks great. Keep doing what you're doing." His top number, his systolic pressure, was sitting right around 128. His doctor was happy. Arnold was happy. His wife was happy. 6 weeks later, Arnold collapsed in his driveway. He survived, but just barely. And when I met Arnold in the cardiac unit, when I sat down across from him and looked at his full chart, his complete history, every reading they'd ever taken, I saw it immediately. Nobody had been watching the right number. There was a second number, a number that had been quietly drifting in a dangerous direction for over 2 years, a number that appeared on every single one of Arnold's printouts, a number his doctor glanced at and ignored. And Arnold had no idea it even mattered. If you are over 70, what I'm about to share with you in this video could be the most important thing you watch this year. Because what happened to Arnold is not rare. It is happening in doctors' offices across this country every single day. To people whose blood pressure looks fine on the surface, while something critical is being missed underneath. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will know exactly what that number is, why it becomes dangerous after 70 in a way it simply does not at 50, what the research actually says, research that has not yet made it into most standard checkups, and the exact conversation you need to have with your doctor at your very next appointment. Don't go anywhere. My name is Dr. Lisa Johnson. I've spent 15 years as a cardiologist, and in that time, I have sat with hundreds of patients over 70 who were told their blood pressure was under control, right up until the moment it wasn't. I am not here to scare you. I am here because the standard blood pressure conversation that happens in most primary care offices is incomplete. It was designed for a general adult population, and after 70, your cardiovascular system is not general. It has specific vulnerabilities. It responds to pressure differently, and it is telling your doctor things, through numbers that are already being recorded, that are simply not being interpreted correctly. Some of my colleagues will push back on what I'm about to say. That's fine. The research is there, and my patients deserve to know it. So let's talk about blood pressure, the whole picture, not just the number everyone focuses on, but the number hiding in plain sight that could determine whether you're here 5 years from now. Here's what most people understand about blood pressure. You get 2 numbers. The top number, systolic, is the pressure your heart creates when it beats. The bottom number, diastolic, is the pressure in your arteries between beats, when your heart is resting. For decades, medicine focused almost entirely on the top number, systolic pressure. Get that below 130, maybe below 120, and doctors would nod, smile, and send you on your way. And for people in their 40s and 50s, that approach is largely reasonable. But here is where the paradigm breaks down completely. After the age of 70, the relationship between your 2 blood pressure numbers changes in a way that makes the old approach not just incomplete, but potentially dangerous. Here's why. As we age, our arteries, the vessels that carry blood from your heart to every organ in your body, gradually lose their flexibility. This is normal. It happens to everyone. But it accelerates significantly after 65 and 70. Young, healthy arteries stretch and absorb pressure like a rubber band. Older arteries become more rigid, more like a copper pipe than a rubber hose. And when blood moves through a rigid pipe, the pressure dynamics are completely different. What this means in practice is that after 70, the gap between your 2 blood pressure numbers, a measurement called your pulse pressure, becomes one of the most powerful predictors of cardiovascular risk that exists. And almost no one is talking about it. Your doctor almost certainly measured it at your last appointment. It appeared on your printout. But unless your doctor has a specific interest in geriatric cardiology, there is a very good chance they never mentioned it, never calculated it, and never told you what it means. The number your doctor is ignoring is your pulse pressure, and I'm going to explain exactly what it is, exactly why it matters after 70, in a way it simply does not at younger ages, and exactly what you need to do about it, right now. Pulse pressure is simple. I want you to take out whatever blood pressure readings you have, from your last appointment, from a home monitor, from anywhere. Look at your two numbers. Subtract the bottom number from the top number. That's it. That's your pulse pressure. If your blood pressure is 130/80, your pulse pressure is 50. If it's 140/70, your pulse pressure is 70. If it's 150/65, your pulse pressure is 85. Now here is what those numbers mean. In a healthy adult, a normal pulse pressure sits between 40 and 60 millimeters of mercury. Below 40 can indicate its own set of problems. We'll get to that. But above 60? Above 60, your risk of cardiovascular disease, stroke, kidney damage, and cognitive decline begins to climb. Sharply. Above 70, you are in a category that requires immediate, specific attention. Not the standard, your top number looks good, conversation. The patients I see every week who've had strokes, who've had silent heart attacks, who've developed vascular dementia, and when I look back at their history, wide pulse pressure, documented, ignored. So step 1, calculate yours, write it down, and keep reading because I'm going to explain why it matters so profoundly after 70. Point 2. Why wide pulse pressure is a sign your arteries are in trouble. Here's the biology, and I'm going to keep this simple because it matters that you understand it. Your aorta, the largest artery in your body, the main highway that carries blood away from your heart, is supposed to act like a pressure buffer. When your heart beats, it pushes a large surge of blood into the aorta. A young, elastic aorta absorbs that surge, expands slightly, then contracts slowly, releasing blood steadily into the rest of the body. This smooths out the pressure wave. It keeps both numbers, systolic and diastolic, in a relatively close range to each other. But an aging, stiffened aorta cannot do this. When blood surges into a rigid aorta, there's nowhere for the pressure to go. The systolic number, the top number, spikes higher. And because the stiffened aorta can't contract properly between beats, the diastolic pressure, the bottom number, actually drops lower than it should. Top goes up, bottom goes down. The gap widens. And that widening gap is not just a number on a page. It is a direct reflection of arterial stiffness throughout your entire body. Your coronary arteries, the vessels feeding your heart, the cerebral arteries feeding your brain, the renal arteries feeding your kidneys. All of them are telling the same story. A study published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology followed thousands of adults over 65 for more than a decade. The findings were striking. Every 10-point increase in pulse pressure above 60 was associated with a 10 to 20% increase in the risk of a major cardiovascular event. That's not a small number. That's not a rounding error. That is a clinically significant, well-documented finding that should be part of every blood pressure conversation for every patient over 70. And in most offices, it isn't. Point 3. The low diastolic danger, the number that's hiding the real warning. Now I want to talk about something that surprises most of my patients when I explain it, and it surprised Arnold too when we finally sat down and went through his history together. Most people, and most doctors, are trained to worry when blood pressure numbers go up. High systolic? Treat it. High diastolic? Treat it. But here's what nobody tells you after 70. A diastolic number that is too low, particularly in the context of a high systolic, is one of the most dangerous patterns in older cardiovascular medicine, and it's one of the least discussed. When your diastolic pressure drops too low, generally below 70 in adults over 70, your heart is not getting enough blood during its resting phase. Let me explain that. Your heart is a muscle. Like all muscles, it needs its own blood supply. The coronary arteries that feed your heart fill up primarily during diastole, the resting phase between heartbeats. When diastolic pressure is too low, those coronary arteries receive less blood. Your heart, in other words, is being starved of its own blood supply, even while it is pumping normally. This is called the J-curve phenomenon. Research going back decades and confirmed in large modern trials, including the landmark SPRINT trial, shows that in older adults, particularly those over 70, aggressive reduction of blood pressure can drive the diastolic number too low, actually increasing the risk of heart attack and cardiac death. Arnold's diastolic had drifted to 62. His systolic was well controlled at 128. His pulse pressure? A dangerous 66. And his diastolic, sitting quietly below 70, meant his heart was working hard, but getting less blood than it needed with every single beat. Nobody saw it coming because nobody was looking at the full picture. Ask your doctor this question at your next appointment. What is my pulse pressure, and is my diastolic number too low for my age? Write it down. Bring it with you. That question will tell you very quickly whether your doctor is looking at the complete picture or just the headline number. Point 4. The medications making this worse, and how to know if you're on one. Here is where I need you to pay very close attention, because this is the part of the conversation that I believe is most urgently missing from standard care. Some of the most commonly prescribed blood pressure medications in adults over 70 can widen pulse pressure and drop diastolic pressure in ways that actually increase cardiovascular risk, even while successfully lowering the systolic number that everyone is focused on. I want to be clear. I am not telling you to stop your medications. I am telling you to have a more informed conversation with your doctor about whether your current regimen is optimized for your age and your specific pressure pattern. Certain diuretics, water pills, can lower both systolic and diastolic pressure, but in an already stiff arterial system, over-reducing diastolic can create the low diastolic problem I just described. Some calcium channel blockers are better than others at addressing arterial stiffness specifically, the root mechanical cause of wide pulse pressure in older adults, rather than just forcing blood pressure numbers down chemically. In my 15 years of practice, I have seen patients over 70 on aggressive dual or triple medication regimens with systolic readings of 118, numbers that look excellent on paper, while their diastolic has been pushed down to 58 or 60. And those patients are not better protected. In some cases, the data suggests they may be at higher risk than someone with a systolic of 138 and a diastolic of 78. The question to ask your doctor, given my age and my arterial stiffness, is my current medication regimen optimizing both numbers, not just my systolic? And what is my diastolic target specifically? That is a question your doctor should be able to answer specifically. If they can't, ask for a referral to a cardiologist. Point 5. Pulse pressure and your brain, the dementia connection nobody mentioned. I need to spend time on this one because it is the consequence that my patients find most frightening and the most motivating. Widened pulse pressure does not just threaten your heart, it directly threatens your brain. Here's how. Your brain has its own internal pressure regulation system. It is called cerebral autoregulation. This system normally keeps blood flow to your brain relatively constant, even as your systemic blood pressure fluctuates throughout the day. But cerebral autoregulation depends on a certain degree of arterial elasticity. When arteries throughout the body stiffen, this protective system in the brain begins to break down. What replaces it? Direct transmission of large pressure swings into the delicate microvasculature of the brain. With every heartbeat, the brain is exposed to a surge of high pressure it cannot buffer, and between beats, it receives less blood than it needs. Over months, over years, this damages the small vessels inside the brain. It causes what doctors call white matter lesions, areas of reduced blood flow and microscopic damage that show up on MRI scans. And white matter lesion burden is one of the strongest predictors of vascular dementia and accelerated cognitive decline we have. A landmark study from the journal Hypertension followed adults over 65 and found that those with pulse pressures above 65 had significantly higher rates of cognitive decline over a 7-year period, independent of their absolute blood pressure levels. Read that again. Independent of their absolute blood pressure levels, meaning even among people whose blood pressure was well controlled by standard measures, those with wide pulse pressure had worse brain outcomes. This is why pulse pressure matters. This is why measuring it, tracking it, and specifically managing it is not optional after 70. It is essential. The question to ask, has anyone ever measured my cerebral vascular risk? Should I have an MRI to check for white matter changes given my pulse pressure history? Point 6. How lifestyle changes specifically target pulse pressure after 70. Now here is the part I love most, because this is not a dead end. Arterial stiffness, the root cause of widening pulse pressure, is not entirely fixed. It is not entirely irreversible, and certain lifestyle interventions have been shown in peer-reviewed research to specifically improve arterial compliance in older adults. Not just lower blood pressure numbers, actually improve the elasticity of the arterial wall itself. Exercise, specifically this type, aerobic exercise has been shown to reduce arterial stiffness, but not all exercise is equal. High-intensity interval patterns, even gentle versions appropriate for adults over 70, show stronger effects on arterial compliance than steady-state walking alone. Even 3 sessions a week of 20 minutes of interval-style movement, alternating between slightly elevated and moderate exertion, can produce measurable improvements in pulse wave velocity, which is the gold standard measurement of arterial stiffness. Talk to your doctor before changing your exercise routine, but do talk to them. Dietary nitrates. Leafy greens, arugula, spinach, beet greens, and beets themselves are high in dietary nitrates. Your body converts these to nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is the molecule your arterial wall uses to relax and dilate. Regular dietary nitrate intake has been shown in multiple studies to reduce arterial stiffness specifically, not just blood pressure, but the physical compliance of the artery itself. 1 cup of beet greens or a small glass of beet juice daily is not a magic cure, but it is a meaningful, evidence-based contribution to arterial health that costs almost nothing. Omega-3 fatty acids. The evidence for omega-3s, found in fatty fish and quality fish oil supplements, specifically reducing pulse pressure in older adults, has been building for years. The mechanism involves direct anti-inflammatory effects on the arterial wall and improvements in endothelial function, the function of the cells lining the inside of your arteries. Sodium management, but specifically timed. This is nuanced. Total sodium reduction matters, but what emerging research is showing is that the timing of sodium intake, specifically avoiding high-sodium meals in the evening, may be particularly important for overnight blood pressure patterns. Blood pressure is supposed to dip at night. In people with arterial stiffness, this nighttime dip is often blunted or absent, and it is during this period that much of the cerebrovascular damage accumulates. Ask your doctor whether you should have a 24-hour ambulatory blood pressure monitor, a device you wear for a full day and night, to see whether you have a healthy nighttime dip. Many insurance plans cover this. Most patients over 70 with wide pulse pressure should have had one already. Point 7. The monitoring gap. Why one reading in a doctor's office is not enough. I want to address something that I see constantly in my practice, and it is arguably the most practically actionable thing in this entire video. A single blood pressure reading in a doctor's office is almost meaningless for assessing pulse pressure risk. Here's why. Blood pressure fluctuates constantly. It goes up with stress, it goes up with caffeine. It goes up just because you're sitting in a medical office, a phenomenon called white coat hypertension that affects a significant percentage of the population. To truly understand your pulse pressure pattern, you need multiple readings, different times of day, different positions. Ideally, a 24-hour ambulatory monitor, and here is what is almost never done: measuring blood pressure in both arms. In people with arterial stiffness, there can be a significant difference in blood pressure between the left and right arm. A difference of more than 10 points between arms is itself an independent predictor of cardiovascular risk. Studies have shown it correlates with peripheral arterial disease and higher rates of stroke. When was the last time your doctor measured both arms? In my 15 years of practice, I have met patients who have been seen by the same doctor for a decade of annual checkups, and never once had both arms measured simultaneously. The action step here is simple. At your next appointment, ask your doctor to measure both arms, and ask whether a 24-hour ambulatory monitor would be appropriate for your situation. Those two requests could give you and your doctor more useful information than years of single-arm office readings. I want to come back to Arnold for a moment. After he recovered, after we adjusted his medications, shifting away from an approach that was lowering his systolic aggressively while driving his diastolic dangerously low, after we put him on a program that specifically targeted arterial stiffness, Arnold went home. He went back to his 2-mile Sunday walk with his wife. His pulse pressure narrowed. His diastolic stabilized above 75. His follow-up cognitive assessments were normal. He is doing well. Arnold's story did not have to involve a collapse in a driveway. If someone, anyone, had looked at that pulse pressure 2 years earlier and had the conversation I'm having with you right now, it could have been different. That is why I'm here. This is not about frightening you away from your doctor. Your relationship with your physician matters enormously. This is about empowering you to walk into that office with the right questions, to understand that blood pressure management after 70 is not the same conversation it is at 50, to know that there is a specific number, a number already on your chart, that deserves attention. You are not powerless here. You never were. Let me bring everything together, because I want you to walk away from this video with something concrete. Here is what we covered today. 1. Your pulse pressure, the gap between your top and bottom blood pressure numbers, is one of the most powerful predictors of cardiovascular and cognitive risk after 70. A normal pulse pressure is between 40 and 60. Above 60 needs attention. Above 70 is urgent. 2. A diastolic pressure that is too low, below 70 in most adults over 70, is not safe. It means your heart is being starved of blood between beats. This is the J-curve danger. It is real, it is documented, and it is often caused by over-aggressive blood pressure treatment that looks successful on paper. 3. Arterial stiffness, the root cause of wide pulse pressure, can be specifically addressed through targeted aerobic exercise, dietary nitrates, omega-3 fatty acids, and sodium timing. These are not vague suggestions. They are evidence-based interventions. 4. Pulse pressure and low diastolic are directly linked to vascular dementia and cognitive decline through damage to the small vessels of the brain. Protecting your brain after 70 means managing the full blood pressure picture, not just the headline number. 5. Single-arm, single-visit blood pressure readings are insufficient. Both arms should be measured. A 24-hour ambulatory monitor may be appropriate for your situation. Here is your one action for today. Go find your most recent blood pressure reading from any source. Subtract the bottom number from the top. Write down your pulse pressure. If it is above 60, bring that number to your next doctor's appointment and ask specifically, "My pulse pressure is your number. Given my age, is this something we should be monitoring and addressing directly?" That is it. That is the conversation that could change the trajectory of your next 5 years. Now I want to hear from you in the comments. When you calculated your pulse pressure just now, what number did you get? And did your doctor ever mention pulse pressure to you? Tell me below, because I read these comments, and your answer will help me know what to talk about next. Everything I've shared today is general health information, grounded in published research and my 15 years of clinical experience. Your situation is unique. Before making any changes to your medications or care routine, please speak with your own physician who knows your full medical history. That conversation is always worth having. I'm Dr. Lisa Johnson. Stay informed, stay strong. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.